Hi, my name is John, and this is Business Update. Before we begin, let me share with you my experience last week's. You may notice I wasn't able to upload any videos last week due to the fact me being under the weather. So it's important I prioritize getting better first before proceeding creating more videos for everyone here today. So take care, everyone. Despite the rising number of cases, we have to be steadfast and be aware of, especially when you're going out, if it's necessary. If you can avoid it, try to minimize getting into contact with other people. But anyway, so on with the video for today. For this week's video, we'll be discussing an inside look how one of the biggest tech companies in the world, Amazon, how they treat their employees. Now, there have been a lot of reports. We've been discussing it heavily from the past, and we'll try to combine them together, see what can be done with it. Is it solvable, or is it a mistake that they can rectify, or is it by intentional so that they can prioritize over profit? So in many issues that the Amazon as a e-commerce platform, obviously catering to the masses here by offering very low prices here, and obviously in business, you can only maximize profit or minimize cost. So you have to do a balancing act. Now, obviously, for business like Amazon, they need ways to minimize cost so that they can maximize their profitability or profit there. And more often than not, by reducing the cost significantly to the point of incurring loss, they find other ways to recuperate their expenses. And the sad fact is, many of their employees are the brunt of that situation. And we'll go into detail into the many instances that the company, why are they in so hot water, and how they hire people, fire people, and how they review their people. It's just like, people are not considered humans. They are robots that if they are not able to reach a certain threshold requirement, they are let go for business reasons. Whether that's considered ethical or not, that's another debate altogether here. So let's take a closer look here. So according to insiders.com, so this article shows what it's really like working inside Amazon, from hiring, firing, and how they review their employees, and many much more. So let's dig deep here. So in this article, as you can see here, the former CEO, which is Jeff Bezos, have been boasting that their company is one of the best places to work. Maybe it depends on the type of job, and obviously the bulk of Amazon is people who work inside the warehouse, which with the rise of sales revenue due to COVID from 2020 all the way to the present, how they treat their employees in terms of safeguarding their employees, and then the pay, in terms of setting unrealistic expectation, which we'll discuss in a bit. So let's see here. So Insider did an investigation in terms of Amazon Workplace amid major effort to unionize the company. Now, it was mentioned before that due to the fact of how terrible the working conditions in the company, it makes sense for a union to be formalized so that they can protect the interests of the employees here. Now, obviously, there are the company is against that because obviously it goes against the interest of the company here. And the question here is, the first instance they tried to unionize, this was foiled by the company. That's why there's going to be another session for the employees to unionize, whether they will push through or not, which says a lot, to the point that if a group of employees are trying to work together so that they can fight for the interest, not just for themselves but for other workers as well here. Anyway, so it's not just that. They provide complex performance review system to their employees here. So you can just imagine. So a good example here is, I think they mentioned that they have a quota of they have to fire at least 5% of their workforce. So if you're a manager, if you have 10 employees, and 5% of that, you have to fire them, and that's a given, so that there's the churn that they're calling. So whether it's in managerial or even in other key positions in the company here now, whether that's creates uh, competition, more productivity. It's a hit and miss here. Another issue here is there was an allegation regarding gender bias on its prime division. Obviously, you don't want any biases within the company in terms of hiring, promoting employees, and you've heard what's happening right now with Activision Blizzard, and we'll talk about that also in our next video. So stay tuned for that one. But anyway, so how they treat their employees, in terms of hiring. Obviously, you want equal opportunity for everyone, but you want to hire the best, regardless if it's male or female. And according to the report, that's not the case here. That they are prioritizing a male-dominated culture, which is, doesn't breed harmonious collaboration and more productivity within the workplace. Anyway, so one of the key advantages that Amazon has is it's one of the biggest companies in the world that hires roughly about 1 million employees worldwide. So obviously this attracts a lot of attention, especially if you're a politician, in enticing Amazon to put up their warehouse in different states in the United States. And obviously this provides a lot of jobs for many people, but on the downside, how they treat their employees is a key issue here. Obviously, Amazon's influence has come under scrutiny, obviously, with the nationwide unionization, as I mentioned earlier. But the issue here is they try to stop the unionizing. Obviously, this will go against, and thinking that the human resource will be there to protect the interests of the employees. Well, sad to say that HR is built to protect the interests of the company, not the employees themselves. And obviously, now we have a new CEO under the helm. Will that change how they treat their employees, or will it still be the same here? And obviously, the system has been criticized by current and former employees that it's unfairly stacked against them and can encourage management or managers to give bad reviews to good staff. So obviously there are good intentions here that I think the company is trying to incorporate, but obviously good intentions don't always have unintended consequences, and obviously it builds instead of camaraderie or cooperativeness, it's a very toxic work-like condition, which is not ideal for any employees, especially if you're in the warehouse where the brunt of the work for Amazon is sorting packages, delivering the packages, and so forth. Anyway, and you can see here other articles that state a complex employee review system where workers feel left in the dark and managers expect to give a 5% reports of bad reviews. So it's a requirement, not necessarily because it warrants a bad review, but just because the company, how did they come up with the figure of 5% and a 10% or even higher? And obviously they want to focus on negative reinforcement rather than positive reinforcement. Anyway, it also mentioned here hundreds of Amazon employees joined the internal Slack channel to criticize the opaque performance review system. And another issue, as mentioned, is if the process is transparent, I think it makes it easier for employees to understand why the process is the way it is. But if it's opaque, it's not transparent, then it gives a lot of questions as to why the company is doing such policies and so forth. So it creates a lot of what do you call this? Separation between the employees and the company themselves. Also, you can see that Amazon managers say they hire people just to meet the internal turnover goal every year, which is obviously not a good sign if you're a company that's looking forward or is a requirement to hire people so that you can just fire them. And obviously this doesn't breed any cohesiveness within the company. Imagine you applying in their company and then not knowing if you're going to be fired just because it's one of the statistics that they need to implement to make them more streamlined. I don't know. It goes on to say also, there's another article, the leaked documents that show Amazon Music wants to scrap a controversial company-wide performance review system that says that some say unfairly fires employees. So obviously, if you want to work for the company, which is enticing enough because they hire a lot of workers, but the point here is, will you last long enough to reap the benefits here? Now, obviously, if you're in the warehouse position, whether delivery or sorting the packages, the salary is not that high, even though they're boasting that they're paying minimum wage, which is another debate here with regards to minimum wage versus living wage. Those are two different aspects that needs to be tackled in the future. Anyway, so it's not just how they treat employees, but the company has been hit with allegations of bias here. So let's go back here. So bias in terms of, how they hired, what's the hiring policy, how they hire or promote employees, which goes back to being transparent in their performance review system, or how they hire. And obviously, little to no communication has been done between management and the employee, so that it's kind of confusing. If you're in the company, how will you know if you're going to be compensated properly, promoted, recognized in terms of your hard work here. There has been a rash of lawsuits filed against Amazon alleging gender and racial bias. Now, obviously, you don't want that to happen in any company. And as I mentioned earlier, take a look at how Activision Blizzard treats its employees, the toxic work-life culture. Now, obviously, it's a common problem for many companies, and obviously, you don't want to let it get out of hand, and you want to make sure that at least there's an effort on the management side to squash out any imperfections or bias, as mentioned in this article here. And it mentions here there are 5 current and former female employees sued the company, claiming abusive mistreatment by primarily white male managers. Now, obviously, again, it's not just bias, but toxic work-life cultures, how treat employees, which is unacceptable in any aspect, because obviously at the end of the day, to be successful for a company, regardless of gender, it should reward performance over anything else, because at the end of the day, the bottom line still is king for any company. If it does not make profit, or make the most profit, or the maximum profit, then the business will be in trouble, not now but sometime in the near future. And obviously Amazon has a lot of things going right for them, but a lot of things going wrong from them, from how they treat their employees, how they treat their customers, even though they provide the lowest price possible, the most affordable, cheapest product possible, but allowing their platform to proliferate counterfeit products is another major issue. So your key stakeholders here are not too thrilled about it. And then what else? The fake reviews within the so it makes it confusing for consumers to decide which product is better. Is it authentic or fake or not? So if you look at many fronts, they're dealing with not just internal pressures from the employees, but also externally from their customers. And obviously right now the government is looking into it, because the government is the only one who can intervene in terms of how companies behave, whether it's Amazon, Apple, Google, or even Facebook, or any other companies in the United States there. Anyway, so going back, so it was mentioned here in February, Charlotte Newman, a black Amazon manager, filed a suit alleging gender discrimination and sexual harassment. Now, whether that's true or not, obviously it's for the courts to decide here, but obviously the more cases, or the more people who speaking up, just puts credence to the issue. So Amazon can just push it away and say that that's not true, that's not happening, similar to how Activision is approaching it, especially for their CEO. But that's another discussion here. And even though the Amazon spokesperson said that they do not tolerate discrimination and harassment of any kind, but that's contrary to the story, because if there's no any issues that was brought up, then it's not happening necessarily, right? But the fact that there are people speaking up, not just managerial position, rank and file employees are speaking up. Just tells you how deep the problem is, the symptom, the symptom versus the root cause of the problem here. Anyway, uh, the investigation has resulted in corrective action and additional training requirements for those in her reporting line. Now, whether there's credence here, but again, as I mentioned, if there are more cases that's being levied on the company, I think it reflects on how poorly the company has done over the long run and in the past decade or so. Obviously, for a company to grow that big, there are always pitfalls in terms of addressing problems here. But at the end of the day, you have to take care of your employees, because the employees are the one that provides, I'm saying necessary sustenance, but the support that helps the company stay afloat, be successful, all of those great things that an employee does for a company here. And if we were to also look closely, let's go back here. You can see here that Amazon employee says women get few promotions, and there's a culture of aggressive male dominated by management. Now, whether that makes sense for this type of workplace, now obviously if it's in the gaming industry, it's typically dominated by male, but in terms of whether it's in the warehouse or in management positions in their offices, does it matter whether it's male or female? You get the best employees to work for your company. And then there's another issue. Amazon is investigating allegations on gender bias in its Prime team after inciting reporting. There's also 5 lawsuits from warehouses and corporate employees alleging discrimination and retaliation. So another issue that I think I've talked about last year, I think, where during the height of the lockdown during COVID-19 during 2020, the issue where one of the employees were very vocal in terms of stating that the workplace environment in a warehouse is not safe. And when that got word to the company, they fired that individual and tried to discredit him. I think it was a him, I forgot his name. Whether that's fair or not, using companies' resources to discredit an employee who's just being concerned regarding not just his welfare and also other employees. Yeah, shouldn't that be taken as a positive for a company that's trying to say that they have the best working workplace in the world and so forth? Well, that's contrary to their actions, right? Anyway, Amazon's warehouse churn through workers, which is another issue. Now, obviously, Amazon, as of this moment, still has to rely on human to do the brunt of the work, even though they've invested heavily in their technology. If I think Mr. Bezos had his way, he would have utilized 100% automation to be able to not rely so much on human capability. But that's not going to happen anytime soon in terms of warehouse efficiency and delivery of products and services. So I think that's not going to happen anytime soon. But the company is trying their darn best to replace human intervention, which maybe sound unethical or not, but it's their prerogative. But obviously my point here is whether they replace humans in the future, but as of the moment, you're dealing with people and you have to treat them the best you can, because if you don't take care of your employees, and things can get sour quickly, the performance will suffer, the customers will see this, especially you hear reports where deliveries are stolen, replaced with fake items, and then for delivery workers who are given a deadline to deliver as much products as possible with unreasonable time frame, that the fact that delivery workers had to pee in bottles, which we'll see in a little bit here. So obviously there are some expectations or unrealistic expectations being levied on the employees here so that they can churn out more products, so that they can satisfy the customers, but at the expense of employee performance, and giving them excuses so that they can fire those employees because they don't meet expectations and so forth here. What else? Yeah, so if you can notice here, So in the other articles mentioned here, so there are 6 current and former Amazon worker employees explained why they think the turnover is high. And the turnover, obviously, for the unrealistic expectations of the delivery, as I mentioned earlier, so that if you don't meet the quota, let's say you need to deliver 60 packages in a day, and if you don't do that, you will be penalized here because they want you to deliver more. And in order to be able to do that, you have to cut your time in breaks, lunch, bathroom breaks, and so forth. And obviously, I think the company is setting a very unrealistic expectation, and unless they have done the actual work delivered, let's say, what's the ideal time or the ideal number of packages you could deliver within the day, given the different locations. Obviously, that's a case-to-case basis because there are certain locations that are more difficult to deliver on versus on others, especially if it's in rural versus in urban cities here. Another here, it mentioned Amazon warehouse workers are reportedly almost twice as likely to face serious injuries compared to rivals like Walmart. So obviously, safety is another issue. So regardless if it's COVID related or is it just part of working in the company that's making it dangerous to work for. And then we talked about earlier the Amazon against the vote for unionization on its warehouses in Bessemer, Alabama. Now, obviously, time can only tell if that would change and if the strength of those workers to be able to unionize to protect their interests here. And then you also have another article, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters voted in late June about organizing Amazon workers. Now, obviously, the purpose of unionizing is to protect the interests of all employees here or workers in general. But also there's a pitfall in terms of unionizing because on the opposite spectrum, it'll try to protect all of it regardless if that individual is at fault, because obviously the role of a union is to protect the interests of the workers themselves at the expense of some bad apples here and there. So the question here is, will it get to that point, or will Amazon allow the employees to unionize themselves? So again, the communication between the management and employees is critical here to be able to have a harmonious. I think Mr. Bezos could have addressed this quickly if it's really intent of or stating in public that their company is the best place to work for. Then show it not just on management side but also on all of your rank and file employees whom you rely upon to deliver those packages to your customers here, because if they do not do a great job, it reflects badly on the company and so forth, right? Anyway, as mentioned here, you can see that Amazon's delivery network relies on its thousands of drivers, and obviously you've heard of the many issues, the peeing in. So this is not a juice, but that's pee in the bottle for how bad the situation is. It's not just peeing in bottle, but also the situation of you cannot make mistakes in terms of driving. Do you make sudden stops? Are you driving safely, cautiously? But in order to do that, you cannot make your deliveries on time. So penalizing you, putting cameras inside the vehicle doesn't make sense. Trying to control every aspect is just like being a robot. I would think that if we were to do the same, or that would to happen in Mr. Jeff Bezos' position, I don't think he would be too thrilled about it. I mean, it's one thing that you want to monitor your employees if they're doing their job. That's why you set standards in terms of delivery package, given the time frame from, let's say, you start in morning all the way into the evening, based on the location, how far it is. So you have to consider, obviously you have to give some leeway in terms of traffic and unforeseen circumstances. So let's say you're given 8 hours to make those deliveries, let's say 50 packages, and then if there's an issue, you shouldn't be penalized if there's a, let's say, if your car broke down or if there's an accident and so forth. But under normal circumstances, they should set a realistic expectation of what is a desired outcome or being considered productive here. And putting cameras and penalizing companies or workers here is not the way to go here. What else? So as mentioned here, so Amazon is known for imposing strict time constraints, as mentioned, and tracking how many times they stop and how fast they drive. So it's confusing here. So are you trying to ensure the safety, or are you just trying to penalize the employees, which is, as I mentioned, it's a whole lot of kind of worms if you open that Pandora's box on how they, how they treat their employees, which is not good. And the fact that it was, it was written in an article before, and even Amazon tried to deny the situation and later apologized. The point here is, I think the company has to step in and penalize those companies that has a terrible work condition for any employees, because that's not such a way to to live and to work in a company that boasts that they have these tremendous work conditions here. And the fact that it's not just in the time frame that it's unrealistic. Obviously, finding restrooms, especially during the pandemic, is even more difficult because of access giving to it, unless you have the van that has a bathroom inside it, which I don't think company is going to spend on it. So I think they need to find ways to solve it. And all of those problems that we just discussed here, there are solutions that can be provided. And the question here is Amazon willing to do that? And rather than just focus on let's save on the cost on our employees so that we can prop up our profit or revenue here, and so that Bezos earning all of those billions means squat if you can even take care of your key employees, which you have a lot. So obviously it's a double-edged sword that hiring one of the hiring the most employees in the United States. So obviously it's enticing for people to apply, but at the end of the day, is it worth it? Obviously there are many who are desperate because of being laid off in other types of work, so they're stuck with it. And but the question here is, there's always a solution for everything, even this type of scenario. The question is how decided are they in terms of helping their employees, not just increasing their pockets or their salaries for management to benefit. And I think if you can just increase slightly the situation for your workers, I think it would be tremendous for the company as a whole, especially the image itself, that your employees will tell other people you should work for this company or work for Amazon, because the pay may not be high, but the benefits is tremendous. Or the pay may not be is high, the working condition is tremendous, so that you're given autonomy to do your work as long as you get the results that the company is looking for. It doesn't matter if it's there are cameras or there's no cameras looking in your cubicle, whether you're driving or doing work stuff. And I think there's always a solution to any dilemma here, and hopefully Amazon can do a better job and not to I think Jeff Bezos is to focus on doing other philanthropic work. Blue Origin going to space, competing with Elon Musk. But the point here is, you're forgetting where you started it all in Amazon here. And here's the hoping for a better company. Not just imagine if Amazon is doing this I would say devious things to the employees, cheating out the employees. Imagine other smaller companies, if they see that Amazon is doing these types of practices. What more for other companies who are aspiring to become an Amazon-like company here. Anyway, that concludes our discussion for today. Anyway, come back again on Wednesday for more business update. As always, hopefully I can create more videos now. Moving forward. Anyway, stay safe for everyone, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.